Anonymous has decided to enforce the judge's order since you and your sycophant staff ignore lawful orders that go against your fascist plans, and flight details obtained by the hacker. Information about Kilmar Abrego Garcia's flight is in the hacked data. So, hacktivists with Anonymous enforcing the law where our government won't. Really says great things about where our country is at right now.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up.
Hey, it's Ashley Bishop with Status Coup. Hacktivists have targeted the flight records and passenger manifests of Trump's deportation flights to El Salvador. Independent outlet 404 Media reported this morning that they received information about the Global X Air flights to El Salvador. Global X Air is a charter flight company that the Trump administration has been using to disappear people to El Salvador. 404 Media says that information about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador, and the Trump administration has been claiming they're unable to return to the U.S. Information about his flight is also part of this data. So I'm going to read to you a little bit from this reporting from, again, 404 Media. So Global X airline for Trump's deportations hacked. So the piece goes on to say, hackers have targeted Global X Air, one of the main airlines the Trump administration is using as part of its deportation efforts, and stolen what they say flight records and passenger manifests of all of its flights, including those for deportation, 404 Media has learned. The data, which the hackers contacted 404 Media and other journalists about unprompted, could provide granular insight into who exactly has been deported on Global X flights, when and to where, with Global X being the charter company, again, that facilitated the deportation of hundreds of Venezuelans to El Salvador. Anonymous has decided to enforce the judge's order since you and your sycophant staff ignore lawful orders that go against your fascist plans. A defacement message posted to Global X's website reads, Anonymous, well known for its use of the Guy Fawkes mask, is an umbrella some hackers operate under when performing what they see as hacktivism. And I did want to read the full statement. So this is on the Wayback Machine. Anonymous, Operation Dreadnought. Anonymous has decided to enforce the judge's order since you and your sycophant staff ignore lawful orders that go against your fascist plans. You lose again, Donnie. A federal judge ruled on May 1st, 2025, that the Trump administration's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act, AEA, of 1798 to remove alleged members of a Venezuelan gang from the country is unlawful. The president cannot summarily declare that a foreign nation or government has threatened or perpetrated an invasion or predatory incursion of the United States, followed by the identification of the alien enemies subject to detention or removal. The proclamation makes no reference to and in no manner suggests that a threat exists of an organized armed group of individuals entering the United States at the direction of Venezuela to conquer the country or assume control over a portion of the nation. Thus, the proclamation's language cannot be read as describing conduct that falls within the meaning of invasion for purposes of the AEA, allowing the president to unilaterally define the conditions when he may invoke the AEA and then summarily declare that those conditions exist, would remove all limitations to the executive branch's authority under the AEA and would strip the courts of their traditional role of interpreting congressional statutes to determine whether a government official has exceeded the statute's scope. The law does not support such a position. This from the Trump-appointed federal U.S. District Judge Fernandez Rodriguez. So I'm going to go back to the article, but I think it's important to read that statement in full. So the article goes on. The hacker says the data includes flight records and passenger lists. The hacker sent 404 Media a copy of the data, which is sorted into folders dated every day from January 19th through May 1st. 404 Media cross-checked known information about ICE deportation flights that come from official and confirmable sources with information contained on the flight manifest and flight details obtained by the hacker. Information about Kilmar Abrego Garcia's flight is in the hacked data. So hacktivists with Anonymous enforcing the law where our government won't. Really says great things about where our country is at right now. I don't know. Good for them. Glad to see people doing what they can. We can all do something. And if your something is hacking flight records, go forth and prosper. This is all great. Before I go on, I did want to read just a little bit from the ProPublica piece that's actually linked in the 404 Media article, because I want to remind everyone that, when we're talking about these deportations, when we're talking about these flights, we are talking about actual people whose lives are being ripped apart by the callousness of this administration. So this ProPublica piece, inside ICE Air, flight attendants on deportation planes say disaster is only a matter of time. The deportation flight was in the air over Mexico when chaos erupted in the back of the plane, the flight attendant recalled. A little girl had collapsed, she had a high fever, and was taking ragged, frantic breaths. The flight attendant, a young woman who went by the nickname Layla, said she grabbed the plane's emergency oxygen bottle and rushed past rows of migrants chained at the wrists and ankles to reach the girl and her parents. By then, Layla was accustomed to the hard realities of working charter flights for immigration and customs enforcement. She learned to obey instructions not to look the passengers in the eyes, not to greet them or ask about their well-being, but until the girl collapsed, Layla had managed to escape an emergency. So again, flight attendants on these flights are being instructed not to look passengers in the eyes, not to greet them or ask about their well-being. So basically treat them like cattle who are being chained and flown to El Salvador. The piece goes on. Layla worked for Global Crossing Airlines, the dominant player in the loose network of deportation contractors known as ICE Air. Global X, as the charter company is also called, is lately in the news. 2 weeks ago, it helped the Trump administration fly hundreds of Venezuelans to El Salvador, despite a federal court order blocking the deportations, triggering a showdown that experts fear could become a full-blown constitutional crisis. In interviews with ProPublica, Layla and 6 other current and former Global X flight attendants provided a window into a part of the deportation process that is rarely seen and little understood. For migrants who have spent months or years trying to reach this country and live here, it is the last act, the final bit of America they may experience. Which is just like, that statement itself is extremely well put, and I don't know, kind of fills me with despair. All but one of the flight attendants requested anonymity or asked that only a nickname be used, fearing retribution or black marks as they looked for new jobs in an insular industry. Because ICE, Global X, and other charter carriers did not respond to questions after being provided with detailed lists of the story's finding, the flight attendants' individual accounts are hard to verify, but their stories are consistent with one another. They are also generally consistent with what has been said about ICE Air in legal filings, news accounts, academic research, and publicly released copies of the ICE Air Operations Handbook. That morning over Mexico, Layla said the girl's oxygen saturation level was 70%, perilously low compared with a healthy person's 95% or higher. Her temperature was 102.3 degrees. The flight had a nurse on contract who worked alongside its security guards, but beyond giving the girl Tylenol, the nurse left the situation in Layla's hands, she recalled. Layla broke the rule about talking to detainees. The parents told Layla their daughter had a history of asthma. The mom, who Layla said had epilepsy, seemed on the verge of her own medical crisis. Layla placed the oxygen mask on the girl's face. The nurse removed her socks to keep her from further overheating. Layla counted down the minutes, praying for the girl to keep breathing. This account is horrific. And you don't need to be a parent to be able to have sympathy here. If you have siblings, nieces, nephews, have parents yourself, or were once a child, you should be able to have empathy for these people who, again, are having their entire lives just ripped away under false pretenses and straight up lies. I cannot imagine how terrifying all of this must have been for that little girl. Being sick when you're a kid is kind of scary enough sometimes, but being on that flight and being sick, I cannot imagine being subjected to that. So this is a really good piece from ProPublica. I would highly recommend reading it in its totality. So back to the lies. This is reporting from yesterday that I'm going to share. Declassified memo shares Trump's own intel agencies reject his claim about notorious gang. So again, back to the lies. A declassified U.S. intelligence memo obtained by the New York Times contradicts a claim by President Donald Trump that the government of Venezuela controls the Trinidad gang. In March, Trump invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to justify the deportation of more than 200 Venezuelans to El Salvador, where they are being incarcerated without due process. The act has been invoked just 3 times: the War of 1812 and during both World Wars. During World War II, the legislation was used to intern people of Japanese, Italian, and German descent. The Trump administration, save for the intelligence community, maintains that Tren de Aragua is controlled by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. While Venezuela's permissive environment enables TDA to operate, the Maduro regime probably does not have a policy of cooperating with TDA, and it's not directing TDA movement to and operations in the United States, the Times reported the memo as saying. The Times also reported in March that intelligence agencies were at odds with Trump's official position on Tren de Aragua, but the newly declassified memo shows the extent to which those agencies doubt a connection between the gang and Maduro's government. The Trump administration has made the deportation of undocumented immigrants a priority, if not a spectacle. In March, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem traveled to El Salvador to tour the prison where the aforementioned deportees are being held. "Do not come to our country illegally," Noem said in a video with shirtless prisoners in the background. "You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people." So intelligence agencies doubt what the Trump administration has been telling us, that Maduro's government controls the Tren de Aragua gang, a justification for sending immigrants to an infamous prison in El Salvador without due process. And when you're thinking about this, please hold in your mind what I just read from ProPublica, the little girl who fell ill on one of these deportation flights. And on crimes against the American people, Trump had this to say.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said.
So our president doesn't know anything about due process, a right given to everyone in this country by our Constitution. He's leaving all of that to his lawyers. He doesn't know anything about it. And his buddies in the party of what I thought were, faithful and fearless followers of the Constitution apparently are not at all concerned about this.
Thanks. So the president said he doesn't know when asked if everyone in the U.S. deserves due process and if he needs to uphold the Constitution. Does that concern you?
No, I don't think the president ever inferred that he didn't want to uphold the Constitution of the United States. He swore that oath when he took office. He said very specifically, like, I got great lawyers. I'm going to make sure that we agree with the Supreme Court ruling, which means that the Supreme Court ruling, their entire job is to make sure that something's constitutional. When they rule on it and they say it is or isn't constitutional.
I'm pretty sure that the Supreme Court has already ruled on all of this, and the Trump administration has been ignoring these rulings. They don't have to agree, they have to follow them. And that is the whole reason that we're even talking about any of this.
They will abide by that, which means he basically said, we'll follow whatever they deem is constitutional.
Again, no, they won't. Because they have shown us that they're not going to, because they already did not.
Isn't the Constitution constitutional, though? I mean, he was being asked about the Constitution, not the interpretation of the Constitution.
Sure, but the Constitution, just like the Bible, a lot of people like to interpret, including lawyers, especially lawyers. As a matter of fact, we've seen that very frustratingly applied historically.
So, such a comforting final thought. Such a comforting final thought from Representative Rich McCormick. The Constitution, like the Bible, is open to interpretation. I am really looking forward to more of their lawyers' interpretations of the Constitution going forward. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, follow, and subscribe to Status Coup News. And please do consider supporting our reporting by becoming a paid member to Status Coup. If you watched the live stream yesterday, you would know that John and I were on the ground covering a pro-Palestine protest at the Met Gala in New York City. We want to be able to do more of this. It takes a lot of money and resources to be on the ground, whether it's in New York City or in Pennsylvania, where we were last week covering the Bernie rallies. So please do, again, consider becoming a paid member of Status Coup for as little as $5 a month. And you can do this at statuscoup.com/join. Thank you guys again for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.